Welcome to the Mashup.
Tell me whether I'm wrong or right. East or west, up or down, side to side. I sit to stand and fall to fly. Of all of my impulsive plans, pop and lock and salsa dances on demand.
I've been having this interesting little repetitive interaction on Twitter lately, where whenever I'm talking about the East-West divide in Canada, I talk about Ontario and fucking Quebec as being part of Eastern Canada. And then people are like, well, it's not Eastern, it's Central. And I've said, well, have you ever looked at a map of Canada? It's not in the middle at all. And they're like, oh, well, that's, Eastern Canada is the Maritimes. I'm like, here, I got something interesting to show you guys. This is from the infallible Government of Canada. Time zones and daylight savings time. And if you go to them and you look, here's the time zones. We've got Pacific, Mountain, Central, which is Saskatchewan and Manitoba and a little sliver of Ontario, and Eastern Standard Time is Ontario and fucking Quebec. So the next time someone's like, well, Ontario and fucking Quebec aren't part of Eastern Canada, the government disagrees with you. Checkmate.
Welcome to Mashup 143. I want to get this note out. If you were looking for it on YouTube, my interview at the start of the week got removed again from there, so I'm not there. And I was pissed off, and I completely forgot to sign into Rumble and get that set up. So if you're looking on either of the platforms, sorry, Rumble, you got lumped in with YouTube because that really annoyed me. So we're on X, where all your free conversation, they don't seem to want to remove me for any of those. They might shadow ban me for a few, but certainly they're not removing the entire bloody channel again. Thank you, YouTube, and everything else. Now, it is on the Mashups YouTube channel because obviously I don't post all of my interviews there. And you know what got it too? Scott Marsland talking about chlorine dioxide. That's what it was.
Medical say that. You can't say
I know. We're gone.
Dioxide.
Medical misinformation. I know. Unbelievable. Well, we got a busy show today. We got lots going on. We got two guests sitting in here. We got more coming soon. You want to do Coot 6.5 real fast? Might as well. Yes?
Let's do that.
Okay, so Coot 6.5, Christopher Carbert and Anthony Olenek. Of course, we're talking about guys put in jail here in Alberta for 6.5 years. And here's this man who sexually assaulted 4 strangers in Vancouver's downtown core has been given a conditional discharge. Sorry, women.
Yeah, phrasing.
Serial groper.
No jail time for serial groper. At first glance, you might assume that this article is about the Prime Minister, but it's actually about Hussein Al-Shami, a serial groper who attacked 4 women near BC Place and Rogers Arena. And he pled guilty to 1 count of sexual assault. And basically, the court said that as long as you don't grope any other women for the next 30 days, everything's okay.
That's right.
Now, obviously, he doesn't have a missus because, if I had to go 30 days without grabbing Mrs. Two's butt when she was making dinner in the kitchen or something like that, I don't know. I'd just be in jail as long as the Coots boys.
Happy Airborne Friday. Jamie Sinclair, the military boys, and we're going to get right to it. We're talking here right off the hop of the show about Dr. Gary Davidson's Alberta COVID-19 pandemic data review from the task force at their final report. And we got 2 guests with us. I think most people know the first petroleum engineer. He's now a giant political commentator. We're talking Martin Belanger, a.k.a. Marty Up North. And then also constitutional lawyer Jeff Rath. So, boys, thanks for hopping in with us this morning to discuss the report. I'm curious your thoughts on what has
First
been...
off, before we get too far, I'm with twos. I'm from Alberta, so as far as I'm concerned, if you're even in Saskatchewan, you're in Eastern Canada. Let's not be
racist here, Marty.
I hate to say this, guys. I live in Foothills, Alberta, and myself and guys like Gary Davidson and other ranchers and farmers in Alberta, a lot of us take the position if you live on the east side of Highway 2, you're an Easterner. So
there you go.
What you want to do with that?
What did you guys think of Dr. Gary Davidson's report? Just curious. It got released last Friday after we did the show, It was supposed to be 11 o'clock. I thought maybe we'd be able to comment on it live. Then it got backed right off till 3 p.m., kind of with no fanfare, et cetera, et cetera. That's been pointed out. There was lots of great things in the document. I'll start with Jeff. What did you think of the report?
I think, I'm an advocate, as for people that have been vaccine injured and that have had their businesses shut down during COVID. I thought the report didn't obviously go as far as I wanted it to go, but I thought it was a very fair, objective, and even-handed look at everything that went wrong start to finish. And for anybody that wants to understand how it was that, our society degenerated into the form of tyranny that it did, read the chapter in that report on all of the misfeasance and corruption by the College of Physicians and Surgeons and the colleges of pharmacy, and that'll tell you everything you need to know about what went wrong. And then that being said, generally, and I hope we can talk about it in some detail, there's some, I'll just go real high level bombshells in that report that come out of some of the most respected medical journals in the world. First of all, JAMA Cardiology article that came out in 2022 that definitively 23 million person surveillance study that definitively proved that Dina Hinshaw was completely negligent when she told people to mix the vaccines because of a 3,600% increased risk of contracting myocarditis if you mix Pfizer and Moderna. The other huge takeaway, and again, out of Pfizer's own data, they cite the fact that in the Pfizer trials, there were only 32 pregnancies that Pfizer tracked after giving women having the vaccine. And out of 32 pregnant women who got the vaccine in the trials, only one baby out of 32 was born as a normal birth, and that 31 out of 32 pregnancies ended in miscarriage or spontaneous abortion. So all this stuff about telling pregnant women that vaccines were safe and effective, I think what Dina was really saying was that the vaccines are safe as an abortion drug and more effective than the morning after pill, because I Googled the other day, the morning after pill is 94 to 96% effective. And if you do the math on 31 over 32, it's the Pfizer drug was 96.875% effective as an abortion drug. So let that sink in. And that's not misinformation. That's Pfizer's data.
That's exactly what happened with Viagra.
Point, and then I'll turn it.
Oh, go ahead.
Right, and then I'll turn it over to Marty. But then the last point that I want people to focus on is that they reference a Lancet study where they followed kids that were subacute for myocarditis. So they weren't experiencing any real symptoms at that point yet, but had both the shots. And they found in this study that over 52% of the kids that they studied in that shot that had gotten the shot, fully 52% of them actually had myocarditis. Of that group, 32% of them, the myocarditis was so severe that once it was diagnosed, they couldn't return to normal levels of physical activity. And fully 26% of them were on continuing cardiac medications as much as 90 days after the shot. So Lancet completely proves everything that McCullough was saying about the drugs being cardiotoxic, and that they literally were destroying the hearts of children in Alberta and Canada when they knew full well from Table 14 of the Pfizer EUA that the drugs were cardiotoxic, and that Pfizer, while they would notionally admit to one single potential COVID death per million, Pfizer admitted in its early studies that they were going to put a minimum of 34 children per million into the ICU, not just hospital, ICU with myocarditis. When any pediatric, ICU specialist will tell you, you put 36 kids with myocarditis that have myocarditis severe enough to go on a ventilator, probably at least 6 of them are going to die. And then, of course, you get to the end of that table, which I say was fraudulent. Pfizer said projected deaths from the COVID Pfizer vaccine in children, 0. But their own data completely denied it, and their own data prior to these vaccines being approved proved that that these vaccines are going to kill more kids than COVID. And unfortunately, that's what we're seeing now. So I'll let all of that sink in. And that's why everybody in the medical community that was guilty of dosing these kids are jumping up and down and trying to discredit this report, because they're all guilty.
Marty.
Yeah, no, wow, that's a lot. To your original question, I was waiting for the report to come out. I knew that the report was going to come out. Danielle had talked about it, but me specifically, Danielle spoke to me in 2021, 2022 about this report before she became leader of the party. As you guys know, I was following COVID. So she was interested in one of the stories I talked about one day, and she talked to me, and then she was, thinking about running for the leadership. And she said, like, should we do an inquiry like this? And I told her, I said, it won't be popular because you're going to uncover some wrongdoings and some malfeasance from your own party. And I said, but the way you do it is do it almost like she did here. I suggested to her, do an inquiry as a post-incident review, like in the military and in the police forces and engineering. We do this after an incident. We review to see what went well and what went wrong, right? So I suggested that. Anyways, when the report came out on Friday, I'm gonna say I could have written 60% of this report just based on my tweets and my stories of the last year. So there's nothing new in there. And the other 40% is what I wanted to see, right? And the report says it right off the bat that people at AHS and other places were still not transparent, still digging their heels in. And so do I know that the government mismanaged or organizations mismanaged? Absolutely. But I still want more proof. So that's my first reaction is it's missing. It's not in there. Like the real meat is still not in there. Because we have this report. We have. Marty. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh no, just to jump in on that point. That's why there needs to be a public inquiry, and that's why the report says over and over and over again there has to be a public inquiry with subpoena powers, because all of these bureaucrats were continually playing hide the ball on the Davidson task force, refusing to cooperate, hiding data, refusing to provide data on the basis of patient confidentiality. But everybody needs to internalize that Gary Davidson's task force wasn't some independent group of citizens outside of the government. This report is an Alberta government report done under the auspices of the Alberta Healthcare Quality Assurance Council. So it's a government report issued by a government agency whose role in the context of healthcare is to serve like an auditor general reviewing government action. This is a government report. So, and I know the media try to mischaracterize this report as a UCP report or a this or a that or a Gary Davidson report. This is a government report. And everybody needs to understand that the government watchdog is reporting on itself, saying that there are a bunch of bureaucrats dug in the government who are literally hiding data from the task force and using excuses like, oh, we can't do that because if we tell you, how many people have died in this context, we'd be, perhaps unmasking patient confidentiality, blah, 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 all these bullshit excuses, excuse my language, for playing hide the ball on the task force. And keep in mind, we live in a province, they want to talk about patient confidentiality. I had my personal medical file raided by the college so that the college could determine whether my doctor had, without my consent, or whether the college had no consent, to determine whether my doctor had ever given me a mask or a vaccine exemption. So all this stuff about so-called caring about patient confidentiality, I take with a huge grain of salt from any of the bureaucrats that were hiding behind that one.
Okay, now here you brought up something interesting, and that's the pushback that we've gotten from places like the NDP, who are known for being completely unbiased and not just blanket taking AHS's side on everything and not blowing things out of proportion. And, other guys like Timothy Caulfield, an absolute paragon of honesty in the medical community. And so they've pushed back a little bit. What do you have you guys seen the detractors who've been speaking out against this report and what they've said and what you had to say or what you would say in reply to their criticisms?
The primary detractors are the ones. The primary detractors are the ones who are sort of singled out in the report as having either been negligent or otherwise. It's the College of Surgeons and Doctors. It's the Alberta Medical Association. It's Luane Metz, who's she was doing a COVID study, an HCQ study at the U of C, and then she got shut down, and there's mysterious circumstances under that. But then she became an NDP MLA. So, the people, I would broadly say that the people that are most opposed to this one are the ones who are guilty of something.
Okay, but what about their criticism?
Their criticism is that it's Yeah, go ahead, Jeff.
No, that's what I'd like to address. I mean, their criticisms are that the entire report is misinformation and anti-science, anti-evidence. I would like, some of these people, including Dr. John Connolly, who had his name taken off the report because he didn't agree with the recommendations, to explain to us what it is that they think that JAMA Cardiology did in publishing a 23 million person surveillance report demonstrating a 3,600% increase in myocarditis risk if you mix the vaccines. What about that constituted misinformation? And what are they going to do about JAMA Cardiology being dangerous misinformationists? I mean, that's the issue. Like, nobody will actually ever respond and tell you what specific data point referenced in that study constitutes misinformation. The simple fact of the matter, are they saying that the Pfizer vaccine trial data is misinformation? Because if that's the case, we have an entirely new problem.
What I think we're both saying sort of the same thing. The report and the whole debate around COVID right now is he said, she said. That's what's happening right now. So the detractors, they're saying you're being unscientific or you're using the wrong evidence, and that's where either a formal, royal commission or an inquiry would teeth. The president of the Alberta Medical Association yesterday on Twitter was basically saying this is garbage. And we're like, okay, fine. What part don't you like? And then they don't tell us. And that's where I would love that inquiry. In front of a judge, you bring your evidence, I bring my evidence, and let's have somebody else decide who's telling the truth in this whole thing. Because right now we're not getting to. That's what's missing for me. We're not getting to the bottom.
That's exactly it, right? And I want to see them say, "Well, this is Jim Acosta saying this as their evidence." I want to see them propping up.
Well, no, but that's the whole point. Like, they will not specifically address the Lancet article that found that 50% of children that have the Pfizer shot had medically measurable levels of myocarditis, using valid medical testing methods. They won't address the 3,600% increase in COVID in myocarditis risk for people that miss the shots. They sure as hell don't want to dig into how many miscarriages were we having in Alberta pre-vaccine and post-vaccine. Because once those numbers hit the table, every poor woman that was carrying a baby during COVID that was told by Dina Hinshaw to go out and get the shot and ended up killing her baby, right? Those women are going to be up in arms. So, that's what we need to dig into, but that's what these people won't address. Oh, that's all misinformation and disinformation. Oh, really? Pfizer was lying about its data during its EUA? Oh, really? Lancet is lying about the study that they did that showed a 50% myocarditis rate in children that were vaccinated? Oh,
Jeff,
really? JAMA Cardiology is lying?
If I may, I want to be clear here with a couple minutes remaining before we let Franco in and thank you two for hopping on and talk about this. Doesn't an inquiry pull all those people in and they can't say, no, I'm not coming to talk? They have to come talk, correct?
That's the whole point. They all need to be drug out from underneath their desks by their ear and hauled in front of a judge under oath and be forced to answer these questions. Because just quickly, I know you got to move on to another one, but another thing that needs to be examined is if you've got this strong additional myocarditis risk from people mixing the vaccines, what about the people that were told that it was safe to get the vaccines after they were already COVID recovered and had natural antibodies? I've talked to a number of virologists who think that all of this long COVID we're seeing is really people that were COVID recovered, got the vaccines, and now their natural antibodies are at continual war with the fake spike proteins in their bodies that have destroyed their health. So all of those things need to be looked at.
Yeah, that's chapter 7 in the report. I love the way they label that one. Yeah, it's like we remember early in the pandemic, we all talked about, or the experts talked about herd immunity, and then that disappeared, right? We stopped talking about it. That's addressed in the report, but they call it infection acquired immunity. It's like, okay, interesting. But yeah, the report addresses all sorts of great points like that, like things that to me are irrefutable. Like,
I think we can all agree, if you're watching this and haven't read the report, you really should. You should do yourself the favor, square away some time. If you're not a big reader, take a week, 10 days, and just slowly pick it apart. But the thing is it's I don't think it taught me anything crazily new, because we've been talking about this for so long. But it does put it in a government report. It gives it some legitimacy, even if all the main actors won't they come and attack it. It's like, are we surprised the media attacked it? No. Are we surprised that Tim Caulfield came and attacked it? No, we're not surprised at any of this. This has been the same story for the last. Yeah.
No, one chapter of the report for me that was stuff that I did not know from before is how the regulatory bodies were incompetent or negligent and corrupt. I mean, that part, those bodies, like the College of Surgeons and the Alberta Medical Association, they're very tight knit, and they don't want to come out, right? They don't want to be probed. They don't want to be subpoenaed. That's the group of all the people that I would like to see. That's one group I'd like to see get subpoenaed generally and have to come and explain what they did.
Gents, I hate to cut us off.
One
last thought.
Point though, Sean.
Yep.
Okay. This report should be made required reading for every doctor and pharmacist in the province of Alberta, so that they can fully internalize what they did to our families and our children. It's just disgusting.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Last thing, I was in court with Jeff on Tuesday, and he had the report. It's this thick, right? And
to be clear, it's not that Marty was in court. Marty was attending court.
And then Jeff tried to give a
right, and I haven't been charged, and I haven't been charged with anything yet either. So.
No, but I wanted his copy. The copy. Yeah.
Thanks for hopping in, Marty. Thanks for hopping in, Jeff. We appreciate your thoughts on this and giving us some time this morning.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Cheers, guys.
All right, thank you, guys. We certainly appreciate what you do. Over and out.
I told Tooz this is going to be fast and action-packed because we got multiple guests coming on today, folks. There's a lot going on in Canada. Yeah. We got up next Franco Terrazzano, the federal director of the Canadian Taxpayers Federation. We're going to talk a little bit about taking the CRA to court to stop this illegal tax gain. So, Franco, thanks for hopping in.
Thanks for coming back,
gents.
Franco.
Yeah. No, my pleasure, guys. And we got some big breaking news that just happened. Did you see that?
No, we're going to allow you to just break it on the show.
Yeah.
Well, the finance minister just came out and said that the government is backing down from this illegal capital gains tax hike.
Okay, so but does that mean Revenue Canada is going to back down, or are they going to say
yep.
Okay.
Yep. So they're not enforcing the capital gains tax hike. Now, what is going on is that they're backing down. Really, they're delaying the capital gains tax increase to next year, right? To after the next election. But look, two things come to mind.
Of them.
Yeah, well, for sure. I mean, two things come to mind. Number one, a big win for Canadians, right? And this all happened from Canadians pressuring the government saying, you know what, enough is enough. This capital gains tax hike really was a financial sucker punch to anyone who worked hard to invest in properties, create a business, or save for their own retirement. But even beyond that, and I can get into our court challenge because we're going to keep going forward with it, but what the government was doing with this was illegal, just plain and simple. Now what's happening is the government realized they were going to lose. The government realized the pushback they were getting from Canadians, and now the government is backing down from this capital gains tax hike. So instead of you having to pay it during tax season this year, the government is going to delay it until next year. And let me just tell you, folks, I'll make a promise to you. We're going to keep fighting this thing until it's completely scrapped.
Excellent. Well done. Well done. That's a big win.
It's huge. It really is.
Yeah, well,
it really
that's
is.
exactly it. You're just...
I'm just a little bit dumbfounded, to get his
right? Where I'm like, well, I'm just looking at this play out, and I'm like, okay, well, Revenue Canada is saying we don't really care what the laws are. We're going to do what we want, which sounds exactly like what I've come to expect from Canadian bureaucracy. And the Liberals are like, oh, we don't want to touch this hot potato because it's a contentious issue, which is exactly what I've come to expect from Canadian politicians. And then all of a sudden, out of the blue, we've got, oh, actually, we've seen the light. We're going to embrace common sense and actually follow the rule of the law. And it's not at all what I was expecting from Ottawa. No offense, Franco.
Hey man, no, I'm right there with you. Like I'm here in Mordor right now. You know what I mean? So like I get it. Like it's not every day that the good guy wins one. You know what I mean? And this was a big win for Canadians, and it was, I don't even know if it's them seeing the light or Canadians forcing them to back off. You know what I'm saying? Now let me kind of go into the details of our legal challenge, and we're going to keep fighting it because we're here to set a precedent. No taxation without representation. You can't illegally take billions of dollars from Canadians through unelected bureaucrats. Okay. So as I mentioned, the Canadian Taxpayers Federation, we are taking the CRA to court for enforcing this undemocratic and illegal capital gains tax hike. And I mentioned no taxation without representation. That's not just an important principle or a catchy slogan. That's enshrined in the Constitution of Canada. So not just a U.S. slogan, that is enshrined in the Constitution of Canada. It's Parliament's job to approve tax increases, but the government failed to introduce the legislation, debate the legislation, pass the legislation, or proclaim the legislation into law. And yet you still have these CRA unelected bureaucrats enforcing this tax hike, taking billions from Canadians. And let me just add one more thing in here. This mess was all of the government's own creation. Okay. The Liberals back in the 2021 election, they never ran on a capital gains tax hike. Then they chose to remove the capital gains tax hike from the budget bill. Then they chose to prorogue Parliament until March 24th. Well, March 24th would have been almost a full year since the capital gains tax hike was first announced, and legislation hadn't even been introduced into Parliament.
Yeah. This is great news, but two, I'm like, do we really think that they're actually doing something that the good guy want, or they're in the middle of trying to, they realize they're going into an election year and they're like, well, we better just back off this one for the time being. Like, I don't get the sense that they're like, oh, we want you to have a bit more money, folks. No. That doesn't sit well with me on this side.
I'm with you there. I feel like it's not as though, oh, hey, we realized we were wrong. It's the politicians realized, oh, wait, this isn't going to look good for us. And Revenue Canada said, oh, wait a second here. There's probably going to be a change of government fairly soon. And as a giant conglomerate of bureaucrats, maybe we don't want to go poking the bear too much leading up to that.
I don't disagree with anything you guys said, but like, look, man, like as Canadians who just feel like the government's gotten way too big, right? Like that side that we're on, like this government is crazy, out of control. Like, let's not forget that it's okay to win one.
Yeah, fair enough.
You know what I mean? Like, I understand over the last couple of years, man, it feels like we've just been taking it on the chin from every angle. Today's a victory. It's not a full victory because they're delaying it. But what this means, okay, like what this means, let's think about it, how it impacts people. What this means is that the government will not illegally take billions of dollars from Canadians this year. Okay, so imagine the family who sold their second property, who are going to use that money to fund their golden years. They will be able to keep that money, right? Imagine the small business owner who is going to rely on the sale of their corporation to fund the rest of their lives. They're going to be able to keep that money, right? We're now, at least as of now, we're not going to punish that young, smart Canadian graduate who wants to start the next Google to leave Canada and set up their business somewhere else. So I totally get what you guys are saying. I feel it too. I feel like my head's been bruised fighting these guys. But like, today is a good day. The fight is not over, but today is a good day for taxpayers.
I 100% agree.
Right. And you know what? Now that you bring it up, there's been a lot of other wins in this area. Like, you see what Trump just did the offer to pay out 6 months salary to everybody in the U.S. I get the fact that the Canadian Taxpayer Federation doesn't really advocate in the States, or at least I don't think they do.
We do not.
But you've got that Doge shoring up leases on a few thousand government buildings. But even in Canada, we had Stephen Harper, since he took over AIMCO, laid off 19 people that had absolutely nothing to do with investment roles. AIMCO, with over 600 employees in a half dozen countries around the world. And yeah, it's only 19 out of 600, but it's funny that an investment company has that many roles, and that's probably not even all of them, that have absolutely nothing to do with what their job is.
Guys, if you would have told me 3 months ago, 4 months ago, 5 months ago, that the government on the same day, the Liberal government was going to backtrack on its capital gains tax hike, and Liberal leadership frontrunners are trying to outcompete each other on telling Canadians they're against the carbon tax, I would have said you're out to lunch.
Well, I mean, it's really just kind of a big shame when you think about it. I mean, the carbon tax puts more money in the pockets of 8 out of 10 Canadians.
You're drinking the Kool-Aid.
And why are the Liberals speaking out against this? Why do they want to take money out of our pockets?
Well, I mean, we all know that's I don't want to, get canceled on air here, but we all know that's full of something. As I said earlier, man, we've been taking it on the chin from big, bossy, greedy government pushing us around with one tax after another. And look, the fight is not over. I'm not going to stand here and be like, oh, rainbows and lollipops kind of thing. But I do think there comes a time where people have to stand back and say, man, my advocacy, my speaking out, doing what you guys are doing, it's working, right? One of the tactics that the other side tries to dissuade the lower taxpayer side from doing is tries to discourage them, right? Oh, things are so bleak. You have no hope. You have no power. Well, you only lose if you actually give up and leave the game. But so what I'm saying is just kudos to you guys, your audience, a whole bunch of people who have been working very hard for a very long time to push back against these taxpayer funded desk rulers over here in Ottawa. It's just kudos to everyone. Game is not over. We got to keep fighting, but let's take a step back here and recognize a couple victories that we're getting.
I think our audience knows how highly we think of Chris Sims and the work she does. Franco, you're right alongside her. And I think I can safely say from our audience, we think very highly of the Canadian Taxpayers Federation and the work that you continue to do. I just have one question before we let you out of here. Is I've been trying to understand
I have
this.
questions too.
Well, sure. Twos might get a chance to talk. Who knows? I'm having a hard time understanding this. Twos always laughs at me when my brain goes here. You're a guy sitting in Ottawa. When you see something that hasn't actually been signed into law, this capital gains tax, and they're like, oh yeah, we're just going to enforce it. I'm like, that makes zero sense to me. Do you see this on a daily basis, or is this something completely out of la land? I mean, with the government we have, it seems kind of, normal operations.
Lose.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm trying to have a hard time.
Are there any other things
remotely
that
understanding
Canada is doing?
Yeah.
So what happened here with this capital gains tax hike is largely unprecedented in both the amount of money that they were going to take from Canadians, billions of dollars, and the fact that by the time Parliament comes back, there will have been no legislation almost a year after the capital gains tax hike was first imposed, and the fact that there was likely election right around the corner, so there would be no legislation passed by Parliament, right? And yet you still had these unelected bureaucrats up until about 15 minutes ago who were still going to enforce this illegal and undemocratic tax hike. So what happened with the capital gains tax hike is a huge issue onto itself. Unfortunately, it's not the only time we've seen this. I'm sure you guys have heard us talk about the undemocratic alcohol tax hike escalator, right? Where the government, April 1st, there you go, right, guys? Every year they hike alcohol taxes without a vote in Parliament. Not just that, the carbon tax, also has this undemocratic nature, because where the act of the carbon tax is set up is that it's actually cabinet that can increase or decrease the carbon tax rates, right? That's one of the reasons when the CTF was at the Supreme Court intervening on behalf of taxpayers against the carbon tax, those were the legal arguments that we made throughout the court challenges against the carbon tax in the provinces and at the highest level. So this capital gains tax hike, it is largely unprecedented because of the scale, size, cost, and scope. But unfortunately, there's a whole bunch of undemocratic things that are happening also here in Ottawa.
Well, I'm happy to hear that, one of the things about bringing you on is when you bring up all the different things, I had to hear somebody's like paying attention. I know we give a ton of credit to the CTF. We give a ton of credit to Blacklocks. And there's a whole bunch of others that are like, you got to give a ton of credit to the work they continue to do on, our government, and hopefully a new government here soon enough. But regardless, Franco, we appreciate you hopping on. Tuesday, I didn't give you got a question for Franco before we let him go?
Well, it was kind of the same one where I just wanted to find out, is there any other skullduggery of this nature that is not being spoken about? But basically just parting thought is congratulations, guys, especially Devin. I understand this was kind of his thing. He was spearheading. Very well done from my perspective.
Well, hey, thanks, guys. And just want to let you know, thanks to your audience as well. I know Simmer loves going on the show with you guys. We love hearing her on the show.
Hey, Franco,
thanks for all you do.
We're going to say this one more time. We would love
that was
a piggy.
Okay.
Okay?
Yeah.
We
just, what, sorry?
A teddy.
Oh, it's you guys want a golden piggy, do you?
No, we want to
give one out.
Yeah.
We want to be a part of this. We want to help give out one of the golden piggies.
Maybe we'll do a People's Choice Award. Hey, wouldn't that be fun?
I'm just saying, we could have a lot of fun with it. A golden piggy on the mashup. We'll keep pushing the CTF.
But yeah, if you were looking for a presenter for the next annual awards, we would definitely be interested in presenting one of the teddies.
All right, well, let's chat about this sometime. Hey,
sounds
absolutely.
Good. Franco, thanks for hopping on.
Great. Yes, thank you. Especially because we were able to put you on the spot about the teddies.
Hey, love it. Got to be fast on my feet. Okay, cheers, guys. Have a good rest of your day. Hey,
thanks. You too.
Thank you. All right, folks. We're supposed to have James. Man, where's James again?
0 for 2.
0 for 2. Really, 0 for 2. I bet he's like caught off. Something in a lawyer world. We were chuckling about
habeas corpus or something.
We were chuckling about Jeff Rath because he got in like 15 minutes before the show started, or 15 seconds. And he's like, he's got plenty of time. So, we'll wait and see. Maybe he hops in. In the meantime, we can get on to a little rapid fire news, Tews.
Yeah, we can. So first thing in the rapid fire, this is great. NDP chopper travel costs questioned. Canadian Taxpayers Federation. Here's the problem with the Canadian Taxpayers Federation. They could be on for this whole show. Here's Carson Binda out of the BC division, who brought up that David Ebby's former top aide that we just talked about this a couple weeks ago. They gave him like $250,000 in severance after he worked there for 2 years. He spent $12,445 on helicopter trips. For an average trip cost of $345. If he was to take the BC ferry across the same distance, it costs $15 per.
Yeah. I mean, typical government, right? Could spend $15 and they find a way to just goes over.
I mean, you can kind of see where the thought process comes from, Sean, because you think about it, like you stay at a hotel. Do you use more or less conditioner than you use at home?
I don't know. Those crappy little. I don't know.
Okay,
I guess more like there's. I don't know.
I go to a hotel. I go to a hotel. I got this little bottle that's got way more than enough to
and 2
use.
squirts
and I'm like,
it all
it's
in.
just gonna get thrown out anyway. And so I basically make a Dairy Queen cone out of the stuff and then just slap it in my hair and let it sit there for a little bit. I'll go through that whole because they're just going to toss that thing anyway. No one's going to miss it. It doesn't really make a difference. It doesn't affect how much I pay for that hotel room. And that's kind of where this thought process starts at. But then it eventually goes to, I'm going to take a helicopter to and from work.
We were talking Blacklocks reporter. Holly Doan says, here's a story off of them that says federal employees convicted of crimes cannot remain on government payroll while in prison. You don't say. Labor Board ruling follows cases of Parks Canada employees sent to prison for sexual assault and managers didn't notice his absence for 3 months.
There's so much wrong with this. Right off the bat, if you miss work for 3 straight months
and nobody
notices,
yeah,
your job is unnecessary.
Sad news on this side. PV Mart.
Yeah, this is brutal.
Sad news, PV. We don't have sad news segment, folks, but PV Mart. You've probably heard, I assume, closing its doors all across Canada. Gone.
Yep. Yeah. So get your honestly, go there and smell it one last time. It's the best smelling store you'll ever be in. So
entire Victoria School Board fired by the BC Education Minister over its ban on police in the schools. British Columbia.
Imagine being so crazy that the NDP fired you.
Yeah, the elected board of school district number 61 has said the ban in place since 2023 was based on reports that some students and teachers, particularly those who are Indigenous or people of color, did not feel safe with officers in the school.
All right. City of Richmond spent tens of thousands of dollars on restaurant gift cards. They spent $73,000 on gift cards to 2 restaurants. And then because it was gift cards, they couldn't track whether they spent it all on alcohol or what all they purchased or anything like that. They spent basically almost exactly right down the middle between the two at the Keg and the Cactus Club. The obvious question being, are they owned by the same person? Because that's sketchy.
Saturday, mark your calendars, folks. Tomorrow, it's looking like
it's finally happening.
Twos is excited. Tariffs on Canada and Mexico supposed to come in tomorrow. We're gonna wait and see what all comes with that. There's a ton of stuff going on right now, but certainly tomorrow marks possibly a big day in cost everything, right? Too.
Yep. Chris Cousin says, have you been on those ferries? I'd take a chopper too. No, I haven't.
Chopper.
I'm a red-blooded man. Getting on top of ferries isn't really my thing.
Twos, why are you so excited about tomorrow?
Because it's everything they voted for the past 10 years. It's everything they supported. You've got this government who multiple elections ago said, we are just going to have wide open borders. We're just going to do whatever the hell we want. We have been covering, especially since the Coots thing, but we've been covering for a long time when the odd person gets caught with drugs and they're just let out on bail. We've had this justice system, for lack of a better word, although there's quite a few, that's been going on forever, doing absolutely nothing. We've got a border patrol that is taking people's luggage. Do you remember when the people coming illegally across Roxham Road border were complaining that because the RCMP had set up meal stations for them, they were complaining that there weren't halal options. Imagine illegally crossing the border and the people who are supposed to turn you around or shoot you actually have like a lemonade stand set up to welcome you in. And you complain that the provisions provided
doesn't that sound like Canada?
Sufficient.
That sounds like Canada. It's funny because literally that's the state of Canada.
And so this has been going on for years, and it's finally gotten to the point where it's the rot has crept into the neighboring slabs of wood, which in this case is the U.S. And they're saying, look, enough is enough, right? This is what we wanted. And then, you go back like 2-3 weeks ago, Danielle Smith's evil and how dare she go down to Mar-a-Lago. And now we're looking at the possibility of having oil exempted from this. Why? Because she's the only one who acted like an adult through this whole thing. And so everybody is getting their just desserts.
I'll tell you what, right at this point, before we go to polling Canada, I want to remind people, if you're enjoying the show, you're sitting on Twitter, X, you're sitting on anywhere else watching us, make sure to give it a retweet, make sure to share it, because one of the things me and Twos know very well is we do not have a liberal budget of spending as much money as we want on trying to get our show out. So we would love it if you're tuning in for the first time, you're tuning in, you're loving what's going on, maybe you're a longtime listener, just remember to hit that button. And let's grow the number of people. 2222. That's pretty sweet.
Yeah,
news.
we just hit, as Sean was saying, that 2,222 people watching live. Now, that's not to speak of all the people who watch afterwards too, right?
That's correct.
So
in Canada, you think about Canada right now, folks. Canada has never been so weak. 53% agree.
The people who disagree, I would ask them, when specifically was Canada weaker than that?
I just love this. Like, I mean, doesn't that just right there? That's Canada right
there. That perfectly sums up Canada. So you've got Donald Trump. It's I think it's Photoshop, but it's hard to tell. But you've got Donald Trump sitting in a chair and Justin Trudeau sitting in his
Justin Trudeau walking in to meet with the President of the United States with a Taylor Swift shirt on. We could.
And he's got all the bracelets on. And Donald Trump's talking in the picture, and the caption is, "I could give a rat's ass about your friendship bracelets." And this is basically what this country has become. And so look, I'm all for democracy. And this is what the people have wanted for the past decade. This is what they voted for. This is what they supported. And anybody who had anything contrarian to say about that was a racist, a bigot, a homophobe, or an unacceptable fringe minority. Well, guess what? The unacceptable fringe minority just got their oil exempted from your idiot fucking tariffs, bitch.
Toronto Star opinion: Danielle Smith just might get Trump's tariffs exemption on oil and gas. And then I went on to say, is she really going at it alone? No, not at all. She's accompanied by the Canadian Association of Petroleum Producers and insinuates that she's doing their marching orders.
It's not a bad thing to work with your neighbors.
Naheed Nenshi: Alberta deserves a premier who stands with Canadians too.
This article is 2 days old. And then she got an article in the Edmonton Journal, and it was talking about how Danielle Smith had been going up about this all wrong, and she's not looking out for Albertans, and just it's 2 days old. The article's 2 days old, and it's already been proven to be hopelessly wrong on every facet.
Tyler Meredith, former head of fiscal and economic policy for the Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, he was quoted saying, "By taxing imports, the government of Canada could potentially record about $130 billion in revenues next year." Let's play it. Let's play it.
All right, it's a quick clip. All right.
We're trying to wait here for Twos to actually play. Are you going to bring it up on the screen, or are you just going to stare at it?
Oh, shoot. I'm sorry.
Hey, folks. Okay. Yeah, this is a great clip.
So I've been watching this in the background, but I guess we're going to start it again.
And let's also remember, I think, which is maybe a lot of people don't understand, we're going to have as a government tariffs, because if we respond on a dollar for dollar.
I would just like to pause it real quick and point out how small this guy's hands are. Look at those tiny hands. It's like a Ken doll with a giant head.
You know what they say about small hands.
We're taxing the imports that come back across the border towards us, which means if we're doing this on a dollar for dollar basis and it applies to all goods and services, the government of Canada could record potentially $130 billion in revenues next year, which would wipe out the deficit and would I think create an interesting question of how you recycle that in the economy. Do you use tax cuts? Do you use targeted?
He's got Elizabeth May eyes too, by the way.
Industrial supports in order to help businesses in an emergency. Do you help businesses with retooling? Do you want to think about, extended employment insurance program supports for training? There's a whole range of things you can do, but I think what's different in this case from any other recession is that the government is going to have money.
All right. I would just like to point out that the one thing we could theoretically spend with this $130, and I'll get to that in a second, the obvious thing to spend this money on: NATO contributions, securing the border, and cracking down on people who make drugs. That's what should have been thrown out there. But here's the other thing: is he's saying, well, you know what? If we're just doing dollar for dollar, you're looking at $130 billion in tariffs. What he's not taking into account is deadweight losses being caused by the Laffer curve. Both things I am fairly certain no liberal knows the first fucking thing about. But the concept is that when you raise taxes on something, whether they're called tariffs, taxes, fees, or whatever, pricing, you get less of it, assuming that there's some type of an elastic demand.
Nova Scotia Liberal MP Jamie Battiste says he will be dropping out of the Liberal Party leadership race in favor of backing Bank of Canada Governor Mark Carney. That leaves 5 candidates in the race: Carney, Freeland, former government House leader Karina Gold, former Montreal Liberal MP Frank Baylis, and former Brampton, Ontario Liberal MP Ruby Dahlia.
Yeah, we're going to get to her in a little bit. I'd just like to point out real quick that CBC, to their very limited credit.
No. I want to show a picture of this lady.
No. Here, just look at the picture they picked of Jamie Batiste. Where he's just like, oh, fuck. All right, go to your picture of Ruby Dahlia.
So this could be our next Prime Minister of Canada. I mean, if women are going to vote for looks on Justin Trudeau, maybe we should vote the same way in the Liberal. And she's been clever on her ads.
Well, kind of, yes. I would like to point out that this being her official photo for her running as leader of the Liberal Party, she has her fly open.
What?
Look closely. The fly on her pants is as far down as the economy, dude. Her fly is down. Like the Liberals, the NDP is not a serious party, but God damn it, Liberals, could you just show up for this?
Just when you think we're going to have a dull moment on this show, like there's going to be a week goes by where there's nothing to talk about. Tews finds one of the candidates running for the Liberal Party of Canada with the fly down.
Oh, it's
great catch.
Insane. Like,
great catch.
Oh, well, I don't know if she's a great catch or not, but like she's just absolutely silly. Like, here's her. This is, you're talking about all these great things she's been saying. This is from her Twitter account. Ruby Dahlia will deport every illegal immigrant living in Canada as Prime Minister. Not as Prime Minister, Ruby Dahlia will do this. But if you read this correctly, Ruby Dahlia will deport every illegal immigrant living in Canada as Prime Minister. How many illegal immigrants do we have in Canada living as Prime Minister, Sean? And look, I get it. Look, where she's from, Sean, people aren't really good with the English language. Reading and writing English.
If you're new to the show, Tews has a thing with grammar. He hates.
Okay, now look. She is her people, Sean. Her people are not well known for speaking English very well. Where is she from? Born in Winnipeg, Sean. She was a chiropractor before she got into politics. Okay? And here's the other thing. I just want to point out this picture. Look at these giant fake bazongas she has, Sean. Seriously. They look like 2 fresh gravel piles on the horizon. When she says she could keep the economy afloat, I believe her. And let's be honest. If she'd been on the Titanic, there would have been nothing for James Cameron to make that movie about. And if she'd have been cast as Kate Winslet, Leonardo DiCaprio would have needed more paper. She is going to be a perfect fit for the Liberals because she's obviously okay with high levels of inflation. Sean, it doesn't surprise me at all that someone with obvious lower back problems became a chiropractor. I haven't seen knockers that big since that time I opened a door to the temple of a lost temple in Peru. And now, so if she replaces Justin Trudeau, we'll be replacing 1 giant boob with 2. And look, putting too much makeup on to try and hide the fact that she's aging poorly, it's a perfect allegory for the last decade of Liberal policies. They look like piss jugs on a hot day, Sean. You'd think the Liberal Party would have learned their lesson by now about choosing a leader based entirely on their looks, and yet here we are.
Would you like me to come back in?
Yeah. What else is going on, Sean?
Well, Freeland's quoted as saying, I'm really happy to be running against the Ottawa establishment. I think we need a change. That, folks, is a direct quote from Freeland.
From Chrystia Freeland. Chrystia Freeland is saying this. Here's the thing. Like, everybody's talking about, you had Chandra Arya. He got kicked out. They wouldn't let him run. because everybody was shit posting that they were going to basically Barbara Streisand him into becoming the next prime minister. And they said, oh, well, it's because he didn't speak French. But he said he didn't speak French like over 2 weeks before they made the decision. And if anybody's listened to Mark Carney talk in French, they know that speaking French is not a requirement at this point in time. But we're all talking like, ooh, what's this person doing? What's this person saying? It doesn't really matter, because no matter who wins, they have to go in one of two directions. One, they have to say that they're going to continue to do everything that the Liberals have been doing for the last 9 years, which is going to be an absolute shit show. Or two, they have to say that everything the Liberals have been doing up until this point has been a shit show and garbage, and they're moving in a different direction. And so it's this catch-22. And regardless of how it happens, people are going to look at it and say, either you're the same piece of shit we just voted out, so we're not going to vote for you in the next federal election, whenever the fuck that is, or they're going to say, oh, so you were lying to us the whole time, and it's only now. So you've got this 9-year track record of not saying a fucking word when someone in charge or in a place of authority is doing really bad shit to this country. You just went along to get along because you cared more about your political career. And now you're telling us that you suddenly have had this change of heart? Bullshit. Get the fuck out of here. Whoever wins, it doesn't fucking matter. They're going to be a blip in the history books that Kim Campbell is going to be mocking.
Nearly $60,000 worth of butter stolen from Peel region grocery stores. Me and two love a good heist. And if it isn't cheese, now it's butter.
Well, you know what? The dairy cartels had some really tough times over the past few years. And it just breaks my heart.
Shout out to the DC.
Breaks my heart to see somebody ripping them off.
Three suspects identified.
I mean, did they?
22-year-old Vajvi Singh, 23-year-old Sukhmander Singh, and 28-year-old Dalway Sidhu. Those are the three.
Okay. The point you missed here in this is that, yeah, the headline was butter, but it was butter and ghee. And what is ghee? Ghee is clarified butter. And what do you use it for? Cooking with a high smoke point. And what do you do that with? Meat. You've got a whole bunch of people with very East Indian names, of which about 40% of the population is vegetarian, stealing clarified butter that you use for cooking meat. This country is so fucked up in every possible way. And by the way, 3 of those people were out on bail for previous crimes.
How about this one? A Vancouver escort charged with armed robbery in Ontario. A victim had contacted police to report he had been held against his will by 2 suspects who forced him to withdraw money from several ATMs. Police said the victim had met the suspects while attempting to arrange sexual encounter and had entered their car to arrange the transaction. It didn't go the way he thought it was going to go, Twos.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's still cheaper than having an ex-wife, I guess.
Oh no! That's fantastic. 5 people, including a 14-year-old, are facing several charges after a botched robbery attempt at jewelry store in Markham. Now, one of the things me and Twos love is a good heist. This is about as bad as it gets. Investigators say 4 suspects emerged from one of the vehicles carrying sledgehammers, garbage bags, and approached the store. Okay, sounds reasonable so far. I mean, I think I would go a little different. But then it reads, however, they were unable to get inside as it was closed for the day. I'm like, kind of heist is this? They didn't even go look it up. They didn't even Google.
We used to be a proper
What time do these guys open? Nope, they're closed, guys. Maybe we shouldn't show up and get arrested. I mean, meanwhile, they have video of it from the helicopter as these people bolt the vehicle, get tackled by cops. You're like, this is about as bad as a heist gets. This would be a great movie.
Do you remember? Well, I was just gonna say, it's just like in Snatch, where they try and go into that bookie to rob the bookie, but all bets are off. All bets are off, and they can't get the door open, and then they're just sitting there waiting for the cops to show up, waiting for someone to come in and kill them. And then Tyrone gets tired of waiting in the car, and so he just opens the door, and they realize that it was a pull door, not a push door. This is basically that.
There's a couple of pictures of the two of the suspects. Inmates get treated better than an Alberta cancer patient on the stay in a hospital storage room. She said, I cried. It was like being kept in captivity. And I think I got a picture here, too, of it. If I can find it. Maybe I don't. Thought I did. Regardless, that's how Rose Roll of Tabor described her stay at the Chinook Regional Hospital in Lethbridge after she said she was moved into a bed in a storage closet. She claimed she was forced out of her own bedding. She was forced to find her own bedding, food, water from a vending machine and had to use a public washroom. And there's a picture of it.
Yes. So, I mean, it's better than just leaving her outside or leaving her in a hallway to die. You know, this is, as much as we look at this and say this is bullshit that they put her in a storage closet, we need to embrace the fact that this is a win compared to what has been happening recently. You look at that woman who had to get her leg amputated because they didn't have anywhere to put her for a few days in Winnipeg a couple months ago. This is our healthcare system in Canada making a comeback.
Almost 3/4 of Canadian troops are overweight or obese, documents say. The Canadian military has higher obesity rates than the general population. Military leaders have been warned that Canada's troops are becoming increasingly overweight and obese, with 72% of armed forces personnel falling into those two categories. 68% of Canadian men considered obese or overweight, while that rate was 78% for the men in the military. I called Chuck Brodnick yesterday, too, just to get his thoughts. And you can imagine the explicitives that came out of his mouth.
Expletives.
Yes, thank you. As we talked about the fact there's zero discipline in the Canadian military, and they're more concerned with menstrual products in the men's bathroom.
Well, I'm just going to go out on a limb and say that when you hire somebody for a job, and that job is to get shot at, you would probably want to make that task more difficult for the bad guys. I feel a little run here and there, maybe a salad from time to time, and that bullet that would have hit you whizzes by.
Volkswagen cancels all electric ID7 for Canada, US. Volkswagen has confirmed it will not be bringing its ID7 all-electric sedan to our market, citing an overall downturn in EV sales. And if we rewind the clock to June 14th, 2023, Volkswagen battery plant subsidy may cost Canada $16.3 billion.
Yeah. Yeah. They were promised $13.9 billion by Justin Trudeau. And then that was potentially going to see an increase. And now they're not even going to fucking do it. How much money do we get back out of that?
I'm going to assume none.
I'm going to guess none.
Carol
Scobie says no more beer for the troops. Jamie, you watching? Jamie, you got any thoughts on that?
Jamie, are you awake? Jamie, are you here? What was supposed to be millions spent to recover suspected children's graves at an Indian residential school in BC instead went to publicists and consultants, according to financial records obtained by Blacklock's reporter. The records were obtained under the Access to Information Act, and of course, Crown Indigenous Relations attempted to hide them. The First Nations received more than $12 million in funding after announcing the discovery of 215 children's graves in Kamloops, BC back in 2021. And the costs included that they uncovered were $37,000 for marketing and communications, $54,000 in travel, $100,000 as 6 months pay for 2 trauma counselors, $405,000 in administrative costs, $532,000 was paid for security. The First Nations also hired 25 consultants to provide advice and support to the chief and council, and paid publicists to develop communications strategies too.
They spent over $500,000 setting up security around these locations where the bodies are supposedly buried. What's going to happen? What, is someone going to come by in the middle of the night and dig one of them up? That's kind of the whole fucking point. The only digging that actually happened in this entire fucking fiasco going back 4 years is the journalists and the reporters actually having to figure out where the fucking money went. That's the only digging that happened in this situation. This is a fucking disgrace. Like, just think about this. Like, I'm not First Nations, but if I was First Nations, I would be pissed right the fuck off about this.
Joe Maglioga, the former councillor of Calgary's Ward 2, has been found guilty of fraud. A judge ruled on Monday. He was accused of lying about travel expenses and other claims between October 2017 and December 2019. At that time, he said he was meeting with politicians across the country, including Quebec.
Yeah,
A Quebec cabinet minister, Ontario's NDP leader, and a mayor of Halifax. However, all three testified they never met
that they never met him. Justice Gord Wong told the court on Monday that the only contact he may have had with them was the exchange of business cards. So he's been found guilty of fraud, and he's going to be sentenced in May. Which, again, great news. Actually, this would have been a great thing to point out to Franco. You've actually got somebody who is a politician that lied to get a bunch of free shit, and now he's been convicted. And it wasn't just the Conflict of Interest Act where it's a $200 fine. He got convicted of fucking fraud. This is big news. This could have almost been happy news.
Here's a guy. A trans-identified male in Edmonton, Alberta, has been charged after allegedly sexually assaulting multiple women at a women's shelter in the city. Micah Lynn Katz, 37, also known as Michael Collins. Can you imagine letting this guy into a women's shelter? I'm just like, really? Really?
Yep. Despite the serious nature of the charges, Katz was then released with conditions.
I mean, oh, man, we are not a serious country right now, folks. We are not a serious country. Let's go on to Goofy, shall we? If that wasn't Goofy, I don't even, like, to me, that is Goofy. What are we going to do?
You know, I literally have trouble trying to decide whether to put something in Goofy or talk about it seriously news every week. Every week.
Yes. Okay.
But yeah, leading off we've got female rapper Dank DeMoss has filed a multi-million-dollar lawsuit against Lyft for denying her service because she was too big. This woman is not tiny. She's not tiny at all. And she went to get in a Lyft. And now the obvious joke that's been made all over the internet is that it's Lyft and not a forklift. But this woman, for those of you listening, is taking up most of the screen right now. And when she went to go get into the Lyft that she ordered, the driver took a look and he said, "You're not fitting in here. You're going to wreck this car. The tires aren't built for this."
Oh, man.
I mean, it's not that wrong. Like,
you know, I'd been a few weeks since we had a high-calorie human story, and finally Twos gets his wish.
What, do you think I like covering things like this? Do you think I enjoy
I think you do.
about this?
I think you do.
I think it's just absolutely horrible.
I think this story was written for Twos.
I think it's absolutely horrible.
It's
think
horrible.
of all the cakes that have died in the making of this story, Sean.
A 525-pound bear found hiding underneath an excavated home in California.
Yes. So California is kind of, in a lot of places been somewhat abandoned lately with the fires and everything like that. And this bear just decided to start living underneath the house. And so they set up cameras, and then they set up this big, if I don't know if I'll be able to do this, but they set up a big, they had trouble relocating him because he was so fat. And so what they did,
he was huge,
was they enticed him to get out with all of these. They went and they got this like, and tricked him to getting into this big giant trailer that the door just swings shut automatically, and then the big fat bear gets trapped inside. Maybe that rapper should order one of these next time he needs a ride somewhere. But it's funny that California, they're like, "Oh, there's a giant bear. What's it doing here?"
I think you meant high-calorie human, Twos. High-calorie human.
So this giant bear, it's on their fucking flag. This is their home, people. So there's that.
The latest Ecos poll. I got it sitting right here. Let's pull it up. I think. Maybe I don't.
I got it up. All right. So this is. I can't even look at this and keep a straight face. Ecos who, if you look at his late night tweets, appears to have a drinking problem. And he has made it very clear that he's highly partisan and doesn't want Poilievre to win, which is a tricky thing to do when you make all your money from government contracts. And so now it appears as though he's going all in on just saying that the Liberals are winning and hoping that the poll is going to skew public opinion in his favor and his company doesn't immediately die. Now, I'm not the first person yet. The Ecos poll actually has the Liberals leading in Canada. It's also
Ecos poll is not a serious poll.
It's got 2 seats for the PPC, or possibly even 3.
3 seats.
Yeah,
it's got 3 seats
in
for
Lower
PPC.
Manitoba. It's just damn silly, is what it is. And then somebody had accused him of being a drunk, and he got his lawyer. He got his lawyer to go after this guy. I am Frank Graves' lawyer. We have the ability to find you and sue you for this defamation. How do you prove that? Do you do a timestamp breathalyzer? Like, if you just accuse somebody of drunk tweeting, how do they actually prove that didn't happen? It's just absolutely silly. But that's the state of Canada polls right now.
Do you want to show the video of RFK and Bernie Sanders, or do you just want me to talk about it?
Well, here, tell you what, we'll go partway through it.
Sure.
Almost all the members of this panel are accepting, including yourself, are accepting millions of dollars from the pharmaceutical industry.
Oh, no,
and protecting their interests.
Look at how red Bernie
I
gets.
thought that would come. No.
Yeah, you thought it
I
would
ran
come
for
up? Why?
president like you. I got millions
Yeah, I know.
and millions of contributions. They did not come from the executives, not one nickel of PAC money from the pharmaceutical industry. They came from workers.
In 2020, you were the single largest
Because I had
receiver of
full
pharmaceutical money.
contributions from workers all over this country. Workers,
You were the
that's
single-
not a nickel from corporate
Bernie,
PACs.
you were the single largest acceptor of
working-
pharmaceutical dollars.
No, from workers in the industry.
1.5 million.
Yeah, out of 200 million. All right.
Not one nickel. Not one nickel. Not one nickel. Yeah, okay. Yeah.
Hey,
the
was that a
$1
200 million? Yeah. What are you
Yeah.
talking about?
Yeah. Although,
woman pleads guilty in the UK's first ever cyber farting case. Spanked with penalties after sending videos of herself.
I'm sorry.
Farting
Did it
to her.
literally say spanked with penalties? It did.
I
Nice.
didn't catch that until I'm reading it right now.
Oh my
right,
God.
that's great. Somebody's
I
having
don't know.
fun. Somebody's
But yeah,
having lots of fun.
apparently, she was dating this guy and then they broke up, and this other chick was dating this guy and they broke up, and then she started texting the
Farting
other
videos
chick
to her boyfriend's
videos
ex.
of her farting.
And now she got charged with that. Evans
she's
must
going to
attend
jail.
15 rehabilitation sessions, 60 days of alcohol abstinence monitoring, and a 2-year restraining order following the cheek squeaking stunt
Yes, well, it's very tongue in cheek, definitely.
in the UK, if anyone's wondering.
So
man.
yeah, the UK.
As much as
Justice
Canada's not a
isn't
serious
blowing
place
hot air
right
about
now,
this.
the UK is not a serious place
You
right
know,
now. Bruce.
Although I will say this, if this happened in Canada, probably the same jail terms would come out, but it wouldn't be because it was mean farting. It would be some type of an emissions regulation lapse. They'd be like, "Oh yeah, you're increasing your carbon footprint too much by farting." It doesn't matter that it's into the camera and sent to this other girl. You're farting and it's wrecking the planet.
Do you want to talk about Elizabeth May?
No, but here we are anyway.
Elizabeth May gets more time on this show than probably any other show under the sun right now. She seems to come up every week because she says something absolutely crazy, and we have all the time for it.
Yes.
Carry on, Elizabeth May.
Help address that issue, especially when it's an, as she said, existential threat to democracy.
Watching Elon Musk parade around the world as the new emperor of all, along with his buddy Donald Trump, I am deeply concerned for the next election in Canada. I think Musk interfering in Germany's elections on the side of the far right parties that want to play footsie with Nazis and say we don't have to feel guilty about our past on International Day of Holocaust Remembrance. This is pretty offensive stuff. Our solution in the Green Party is we as Canadians and our government should say there's no such thing as a platform.
So she starts droning on and on after this.
Yes.
And talking like a complete just asshole. But I just want to point out
that's
that
an easy way
she's
to put it.
mad. She's mad that an extremely wealthy person wants to and the funny thing is, it's not even put your thumb on the scale. It's they want to take all the thumbs. Musk wants to take all the thumbs off the scale of discussions of free speech. And she sees that as election interference. But she doesn't see some multimillionaire who hasn't lived in Canada for 12 years going from the Bank of England to running for prime minister as foreign interference.
Thinking of answering, and there's a phone with a picture of Alberta calling. Living in BC shouldn't be so hard. Let's make it easy to stay. Stay with bc.ca.
I mean, this is like the modern equivalent of the Berlin Wall. Like, we get the fact that it sucks living here, but we don't want you to leave, and we're going to try and stop you from leaving. And we get the fact that it's better everywhere else, but we want you to stay here anyway. Like, this shouldn't be how provinces are ran at all.
Quebec, thinking about teaming up with Europe, oil and gas.
Yeah, so go on to that picture here for a sec.
Oop, there we go.
So you basically got the classic "you son of a bitch" arm slap thing from Arnold Schwarzenegger and Carl Weathers, except it's a French arm and a European arm. But the problem is that it's not very accurate. Like, you could tell that AI made this, because if it was a real Frenchman clasping hands with somebody from Europe, their wrists would both be a whole lot more limp.
That's where you wanted to go today. All right. Let's. Anyways, gray sweaters. Is there something going on here? What is going on with the gray sweaters?
What is with all of these people wearing gray sweaters lately, Sean?
I don't know. Must be
It's
a new
unbelievable.
style. I don't know. I guess I'm not getting a gray sweater because I want to look like none of these buffoons.
Why are all these people wearing gray sweaters all the time, Sean? What is with the gray sweaters? Somebody tell me. It just baffles me.
Two's following his idols, maybe, folks?
Well, it's funny. I got this for Christmas from Mrs. Two's. And then I see all this happening, and I'm like, does she know something I don't? As somebody who dissents fairly frequently with the government, is she a plant?
Look at this.
Is there a
resemblance here? Feels like there maybe is. Oh my God. Oh my God. James Madison is on. James, we're making time for you. Okay, let's wait. Let's wrap this up here too.
Better late than never. Okay, all right. We just got I think just one or two more. We've got just the one more. So Xavier Trudeau, who we all know from
I don't even have it. I don't even have it.
I got it. He is launching an R&B career.
So
now,
this is
he doesn't
Trudeau's
do it.
son.
Yeah.
Yes.
Now, I'm not saying that the apple isn't falling far from the tree here, but this is a 17-year-old kid who, to the best of my knowledge, has never toured, never put out albums or anything like that. And he is just launching based on name brand recognition. And this is a preview of this next song. A song this shitty, I would absolutely expect from a Trudeau.
I chuckled in actually the interview because they talked about how he wasn't going to use his last name twos. And then they said, yeah, you don't want to make it because of your father's name. And I'm like, really? That's why you don't want to use your father's last name?
Compare him to Coulter Wall for a second. You've got a guy who, even when people get introduced to him, they're like, wait, wasn't there another Wall guy from Saskatchewan? Like, it's not, hey, I'm Coulter Wall, Brad Wall's kid. You know, he built up this reputation and this following and he developed and honed his craft and built up that
we
million
know
dollar
there's
voice for years before it was even Bradwall Coulterwall.
Yes, but the thing is, let's be honest. Trudeau, that name is through the mud. Okay, we have constitutional lawyer James Manson with us to talk lawsuit challenging prorogation. I'm bringing him in. James, thanks for making some time. We're happy you could make it this week.
Hi, guys. How are you? Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Perfect. Listen, I'm very sorry that you've had a little bit of difficulty getting me on the line here. I'm kind of a loser that way, but there's been a lot of emergency stuff going on that I'll sort of keep in the background. But I'm pleased to say that everything that I've been dealing with has been about this case, and it's been important and it's been very helpful. Been talking to some people, some important people, about their views on how to, emerge victorious from this case. And
what is the case?
What is the case? The case is one of the most important cases that I've ever been involved in, that's for sure. It is a case that asks us to determine or to figure out the power of the Prime Minister. So as we all know, right now we're in a situation where the Prime Minister of Canada has, shut down Parliament, right? He has said we have to have a leadership race, and we have to have a reset of Parliament, whatever that means. So the question then becomes, is that okay? Is it okay to shut down Parliament for 11 weeks, particularly in the middle of a trade war, right? Mm-hmm. We know that President Trump is now very much threatening to impose tariffs. I think it's, tomorrow. And
so
the question
becomes, challenge against proroguing Parliament.
It's a question against challenging prorogation. Exactly. To cut it short, we're suggesting that was wrong, that was unlawful.
Okay. Now, the interesting thing, when we read it, and it's funny because we were talking about this because I just got Grok to summarize it on Twitter. And then and then you jumped in and you're like, or you could just ask the guy who wrote it. And I said, well, actually, that's a really good idea. You want to come on a podcast? And but the thing about it is that you didn't use. So there's a lot of people who had said that he was proroguing it to buy his party more time so that they could figure their shit out. And you didn't go with that argument.
Well, there is that argument, right? So basically, one of the things that we're arguing is that to buy time for a leadership race, that's obviously wrong. That's obviously wrong. That has nothing to do with the business of government, right? That's a party matter, and no party has the right to have a smooth leadership race in the middle of a trade war, for example, right? So that's one point. The other point is the law is very clear about this, that Parliament is supposed to be the supreme institution in our country. And that means that the government is subject to Parliament. Parliament is supposed to supervise and oversee the government. It's not the other way around. The government is not supposed to supervise Parliament. So when Justin Trudeau says, or frankly anybody, any prime minister, when they say, I can't get anything done in Parliament, Parliament's not doing what I want, Parliament's
Oh no.
We finally got him. And he froze up
And
right
he froze
at the
up.
crux. All right.
Oh, wait, he's back. He's back.
I'm back. Sorry, guys. So ultimately what I'm saying.
No, James.
Oh.
James.
You got to go to Starlink, James.
Oh man. We're so close, Twos. We're like this close.
Okay,
The world
right,
doesn't want us to hear about prorogation and the lawsuit
This is
challenging it.
honestly, CSIS, if you guys could quit mucking around with our internet.
I think we're back. Ultimately, what I'm saying is that that's wrong. You can't do that to Parliament. And so we're saying that the Prime Minister's overstepped his authority by shutting down Parliament.
Okay. And now the case has passed its first hurdle and it's moving forward.
The case has passed its first hurdle, right? So there was an urgent determination made by the court, which means that we are now going to a hearing on the 13th and 14th of February. The hearing is going to be in Ottawa. in the Supreme Court building. It's a very fancy building, and it'll be very fun to argue there. And I think that's good. So the case is proceeding very quickly. It's very, very rare to have an urgent hearing happen this quick for something this important. So we've all been working very hard. I've been very focused on, writing all of our materials and all that stuff.
Just walk me through this. What is the best case scenario? And if that happens, the best case scenario, then what happens?
Well, our best case scenario is going to be the same as what happened in 2019 in England. There was a prorogation that happened there when Prime Minister Johnson shut down Parliament over there for a few weeks to kind of avoid all the Brexit, mess. And ultimately, what happened there was the Supreme Court of the UK said what we want to say, and they said that was unlawful because he didn't have a good reason to shut down Parliament in the middle of a crisis. That sounds familiar to us. So basically, the UK Supreme Court declared that Parliament actually never had been prorogued at all. So there was nothing stopping them from going back to Parliament the next day. So we're going to be arguing that the same thing should be the case, that basically Parliament in our Parliament right now has not been shut down, that they can actually go back the very next day after we get a ruling, if we get a good ruling. And ultimately, then what's going to happen is they can do what they want to do. Parliament can then decide what they want to do. If they want to have a non-confidence vote, they can do that. If the opposition can figure that out, they can do that. If the government wants to reach out to the opposition and form some kind of an alliance to deal with the trade war that's coming, they can do that. Parliament can do whatever it wants because, of course, they're the representatives of the people, and that's okay. If there's going to be a non-confidence vote, well, it'll eventually happen, right? But basically, it's up to Parliament is what's going to be our argument.
So if the second day of the hearing is the 14th, is there any chance that it will go over time? And will they make a ruling on the 14th, or will they recess for a while and say, we're going to get back to you?
I don't think they'll make a ruling right away. This is a difficult, complicated case. So probably they won't. Probably they will reserve judgment for at least a little while, but they will be aware that this is a very important and urgent case. So they're going to get us a decision, I would think, within a week or two, I would say. Now, what happens next? Well, there could be an appeal or a couple of appeals, depending on what happens. If the Crown wins, we might want to appeal, and vice versa. In the UK, what happened was they actually had a special mechanism, and they jumped from the lower court decision all the way to the Supreme Court right away. They just kind of leaped over the middle court, and we could do that too. There is a mechanism in our law that you can go to the Supreme Court immediately from a lower court judgment, but everybody would have to agree, and the Supreme Court would have to agree to take the case. So who knows whether that would happen? But naturally, if we're looking at an urgent remedy, that might be something we would want to think about.
James, how long in the UK did it take for the case, and then all the way to the Supreme Court and everything?
It was less than 1 month. And this is one of the things that I made the point when I was talking with the judge earlier in the part about whether this was urgent. The Crown, the opposing party in this case, the government lawyers, they were saying, "Oh, this isn't urgent. We don't need to have an urgent hearing, and we have to have all this time to do this and that." And I said, "Look, the entire thing in the UK took less than a month, and here we're talking about weeks and weeks and weeks of time." So it's true. We're not going to be proceeding as quickly as they did in the UK. That's for sure. I don't know how quickly they could do it. That was light speed over in the UK. We're still going pretty quick here. It may be the case, guys, that we may be debating this point after March 24th still, when Parliament's supposed to come back anyway. It might bring the idea of mootness into account as to whether the case is moot and doesn't need to be heard anymore. Who knows? We'll have to wait and see about all that. But certainly, we're trying our best to get this done as quickly as we can. So if we get a decision really quick from the lower court, we'll lock into gear pretty quick if we need to see if we can get this heard by an appeal court if we need to. before the 24th of March. That way we'll have still some practical value to the case, right?
Well,
but we'll have to see.
The mootness thing, it really irritates me. I mean, it came up with that big previous case you guys had where they said, well, it doesn't matter because we're not doing it right now. And I feel like if that's a legal argument, you could apply it to a murder case. And you could say, I'm not currently killing this person, am I? So it's moot.
That is, yes. I think in the case of a murder, right, somebody still died. Something happened, and that has happened in the past. It's true that, like, that's an action, not a law. So when a law no longer takes effect and the law evaporates, I would argue that what you're arguing is that if that law had an impact on me while I was still, while I was doing my, living my life, shall we say, then I would still say that there is value in what happened there, because even though the law no longer exists, what happened to me still happened, and we have to figure out whether that was good or bad. So I'm with you on that. I also have to say that I had some difficulties with mootness during the COVID years. A lot of these policies, were rescinded by the government, as you guys remember, and that was, in my view, disappointing that we couldn't get a ruling on whether they were constitutional or not, because they were very important restrictions of our liberties. But that's obviously a different issue from times gone by. What I think is that even though this particular case may be quote unquote moot, we're still talking about the Prime Minister's advice to the Governor General. And we still are going to say, just like your example of murder, was that advice good or bad? It doesn't matter that there's no practical remedy anymore. We still need to know whether that advice was good or bad and what the Prime Minister's power is. And that's because it's a super important issue, right? We need to know what is the Prime Minister's power in this situation. And again, guys, as I'm sure everybody knows, the Prime Minister in Canada has enormous power in his or her hands. It's much more than the President of the United States, because they've got checks and balances with Congress and everything else. The PM here has almost unlimited power to do what they want to do. And so does that extend to shutting down Parliament, which is really one of the only other people that can do anything? It's a very important question. So we're going to say, even though there may be a mootness issue, the court should go ahead and hear the case anyway.
Okay. Now, it's been a couple weeks since I read it, so please refresh my memory. You're not, the defendant isn't the Governor General. Who specifically is the defendant? And then how does that fit into, like, is it Justin Trudeau personally?
No. Originally, what we did was we named in the title of the action the Prime Minister, not Justin Trudeau in his personal capacity, but the Prime Minister in his official capacity, and the Governor General and the Attorney General of Canada, because the way the rules of court work and all this boring legal stuff, you're supposed to name the Attorney General, because the Attorney General is the chief legal officer of the government. And essentially, they stand up for the government for all legal matters, essentially. So what that means is, really, the other names were not necessary. They were kind of redundant. So basically, the Crown's lawyers, when they got wind of the case, they reached out. They said, "Hey, we'd like you to remove the Prime Minister and the Governor General from the title of the proceeding. It's not relevant, not necessary, and the Attorney General is all you need." And we took a look at the law and the rules, and it's pretty much true that you only have to name the Attorney General, the AG, as we say, and that still opens the door to making all of our arguments. So it's really just a kind of a formal thing. It's not really relevant to anything actual in the case.
Fair enough.
Any final thoughts, Tews, before we let James out?
Well, I mean, maybe I'm speaking just for myself, but that was a really information-packed few minutes here.
Well, there's a reason why we've been trying to get James on this side so we can learn a little more about what's going on with prorogation and well, I don't know. What you guys are doing is fantastic. Like it's interesting. That's why we've been, we're excited to have you here.
Well, guys, again, profound apologies for being a bit late.
None
now
necessary.
And then. I am thrilled to be here and to talk to you guys and everybody else about this. This is a very important case. So if you can stomach having me back, I'll promise I'll be on time. Well, I'll try to promise that.
I don't want to have to take you and your own personal attorney general to court if that ends up being less than true. So let's just we would love to have you back.
All right.
And we'll pay
we're
attention.
Not going to hold your feet to the fire on punctuality.
Oh my God, what a loser. Sorry about that.
No. We'll pay attention to how things go here in February for you. And certainly
I'll tell you guys one last thing.
Yeah,
so
sure.
our materials, our papers and everything, they're due to be filed on Monday. That's why we're all furiously working right now on Monday. And then the Crown's materials are due on Friday next week. And then the hearing is on the 13th and 14th. So we are full bore. But I'm happy to come back and explain to you how things are going, whenever you like.
Perfect.
Very much appreciated.
Yes, James, thanks for making some time, and
Thanks.
We'll look forward to an update here in the coming weeks.
Very good, guys. Thanks again. See you later.
All right, twos. We got James Manson. All right.
What a just happy accident how that all came together.
Well, I'm glad we stuck around for a few extra minutes. We're here for a few extra minutes today, are we not, folks?
Yeah.
We got happy
news. We got a couple happy news.
We got a couple happy news. Let's do happy news. I actually don't know what happy news is this week.
Okay.
Well, no, I do too. I do too.
Here's a former president of Kenya talking about Trump and how Trump has eliminated foreign aid.
People the other day crying, I don't know, Trump has removed money. He said he's not giving us any more money. Watu wanalia. Why are you crying? It's not your government. It's not your country.
All right. It goes on for a little bit. At the end, he says that, this is a really good opportunity for us to try and use our resources better and move forward.
And then the other happy news is White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt makes some huge news about changes to which outlets will be allowed into the Brady briefing room, including podcasters, bloggers, social media influencers. The media landscape, folks, is changing forever right in front of our eyes. The Mashup should
get a White House press pass.
That's right.
That's theory.
That's in theory. That's what I read.
Like if we got that, we could go down and do a live stream from 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue.
Correct. We could. Wouldn't that be something? This is
I
an
think we
idea.
got to at least try.
I think we got to try.
Yeah.
Community notes. Twos. On this side, I think the big thing coming here, I'm going to pull it up, is Tuesday. They're doing a peaceful protest in support of Chris King at Lakeland College women's basketball team. And that's
what
Tuesday.
An oddly specific thing to say.
Sure.
I mean, were they expecting violence?
I don't know. Who knows? 12 p.m. on 12:15, they say. A very specific 12 o'clock on Tuesday at the college here in Lloydminster, the Lloydminster campus. So that's happening May 10th, Cornerstone Forum in Calgary, Alberta. Get your tickets, folks. I just confirmed that Eva Chipiak is going to be attending Twos face-to-face on Friday night. That should be interesting.
I got to talk to. I had a week from hell, and I'm sure George is absolutely furious with me for not.
Nobody knows what we're talking about, but it doesn't matter.
But that's okay.
May 10th,
February 15th.
Come on down.
Yeah. Absolutely. Come hang out with me and Eva and George.
And
then also Sean has a thing going on.
Marty Up North's going to be there too. Yeah.
Damn right he is.
Yes, he is. Any other community notes before we hop
February
off?
15th and 16th. Fishing Derby at Buffalo Lake. Over $6,000 in prizes. Well spread out. So it's not top heavy. So if you're a professional angler, it's probably not worth your time. But if you want to have some good old quality time with the fam jam out on the frozen lake catching jacks, this is what you've been waiting for.
I want to say thanks to everybody for hopping on today. We hit a new high for people tuning in to the live stream live. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And if you're new here, we do this every Friday, 10 a.m. Mountain Standard Time. And I want to thank our guests today. We had constitutional lawyer Jeff Rath, political commentator, engineer, Marty Up North, and then finally constitutional lawyer James Manson joined us, and we had Franco Terrazzano from the CTF.
Yes,
so thanks to all the guests that hopped on today, guys. Thanks for tuning in. We're gonna get out of here. Mashup 143 in the books. Twos until next Friday. We'll see you then.
Thanks a lot, everybody.
Welcome to the Mashup.
Tell me whether I'm wrong or right. East or west, up or down, side to side. I sit to stand and fall to fly. Of all of my impulsive plans, popping, locking, salsa dances on demand. I follow leading off the map, and stop the chatter, scream happily.
Welcome to the Mashup.
Welcome to the Mashup. Welcome to the